Hey, it's good to be here, guys. Um, I enjoy this conference every year. I miss being there with you. Are you able to hear me okay, Troy? Everything sound okay? Sounds
I
good.
think so. Everybody can hear
All right.
Sean okay in the room? All
All
right.
right. I've been attending this conference for years, and so many of you have probably heard me speak. But for those that haven't, my name is Sean Fernandez with the state of Utah. I work for the Utah Geospatial Resource Center. Used to be known as the AGRC. We're now the UGRC. Um, I'm going to get into talking about the GPS network. I'm just going to jump right into it. Um, I don't know that I need much more of an introduction other than I've been running this system since probably 2005, so heavily involved in it. What this system really is it's a high precision global navigation satellite system, a GNSS, providing real time corrections with centimeter precision within the footprint of the coverage area. And you can see from the map, these are all the stations right now that we're managing. So anywhere within the footprint of those stations, you have the possibility of achieving centimeter precision. In some areas, it is more likely than others, and we can talk about that, but that's the gist of the network. We also run a second network that is located out in Reno, Nevada, and it's made up of these 13 stations. And we're going to talk about both of those solutions and the progress of each. But before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about background support. And to get me kicked off, I'm going to actually show a video like I normally do. And this is one of my favorite videos. Many of you probably already seen it, and hopefully the sound comes through because I enjoy this video and it makes me laugh.
So did you say you were going to make dinner? I couldn't remember. What?
I just wish you'd take some initiative and cook your own dinner for once. I've been at work too, you know, and now I get to come home and pack the dishwasher and then unpack the dishwasher and cook dinner and put the washing on, and you know what? I can't continue to live like this.
Hey, relax. It's going to be all right.
How?
Here, I'll just show you. Okay, I've been doing this since you moved in. See this basket thing? I don't know how it happens, if it's the house or what, but any dirty clothes you put in this basket, somehow the next day they're just clean, folded, and in a perfect pile on your bed.
You're not serious.
I couldn't believe it at first either, but it just keeps happening. That's why I didn't tell you. I didn't want to jinx it.
You are insane.
Try it, you'll see. Unless it's only chosen me. See, I don't know.
I can't do this.
No, wait. There's other things too. Plates, cutlery, pizza boxes, dirty tissues, anything you leave on this coffee table just vanishes overnight. I mean, sometimes I'll see how far I can push this thing and I'll just leave shit everywhere. And then sure enough, the next day, it's all gone. It's just vanished. It's magic. No, she wouldn't have left me. This is what I think happened. I heard her get up in the middle of the night to get a drink or something. She must have fallen onto the magic coffee table and just vanished.
Are you insane?
No, he's not insane. I've got the same coffee table at home.
All right, guys.
So did you say you were going to make dinner?
That is a good lead in to talking about our support group. Sometimes things just happen out there, and you get corrections and things are working well, but there's a lot that happens on the back end. I don't know how many of you are aware that Mike Hegan, who many of you have contacted over the years for help and support, he just retired at the end of 2023. So great guy, been a huge part of the development and support and success of the GPS network. We're really going to miss this guy. Not only was he great for the project, but he was a really good person and easy to get along with. So, but he is being replaced. This is Denise Peterson. And for those that use us to check on how the system's running or other reasons, you may want to jot down Denise's email address, Denise Peterson, all one word, at utah.gov. A little bit of background about Denise. She has an extensive GIS background where she's done a lot in GIS. I'm not going to read through her whole bio there, but one of the fun facts about her is that she's helped radio collar mountain lions and most of her weekends are out actually tracking down mountain lions and putting radio collars on them, or just seeing how they're doing. And she manages the activities of these large cats in Utah. So it's kind of a fun one. But she's a great person. She is easy to get along with, and she will be a great replacement for Mike. She's very well aware of what we're trying to accomplish with the network, and she's a great support. So utilize her if needed. Remember back in August when we needed everyone to move over to the new server? Well, that's happened. It went really pretty smooth, and we appreciate all those that helped in that transition. We still have some stragglers that are out there that haven't moved over. They're not aware of it until they actually try to connect again. They possibly haven't utilized the system for a number of months, and then they're all of a sudden trying to get connected and realize that the IP is wrong. So there are stragglers, but we're trying to get everyone moved over. If you know of anybody that's having that problem, tell them the new IP address. Monson Engineering helped get the word out about this, and they sent out a 1, 2, 3, 4 steps of updating your survey style. I believe Troy created this, simplified it, and if you have any more needs or help, please contact Troy, and I'm sure he can help you get moved over. As part of the new server, we've renamed a lot of the mount points, which several of you are aware of. If you're wanting a complete list like I'm showing here, go to turngps.utah.gov. The mount point that I highly recommend over others is the GNSS-VRS-NAT83-RTCM32. This is a full GNSS network solution that includes GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, Beidou, and it's in RTCM32 corrections. So highly recommended using that one. You can still continue to use CMRX. One of the issues with CMRX is that it was having some issues outputting the full Beidou constellation. So that's why I recommend the RTCM32. So a quick update on where we are with upgrading stations. Right now, 50 of the 64 stations in Utah are now full GNSS Trimble alloys that are streaming GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, and Beidou. The only ones that we have left in the state of Utah are NetR9s, and you can see that there are a few that are owned by the state. I still have, I believe, 8 of those that we're probably going to swap out in the next year or two as funding comes in or is available. And the partner-owned NetR9s are owned by, Salt Lake Water, Harriman, Eagle Mountain, Orem, Zion National Park, and Arches. We're going to talk a little bit more about those last 2 stations, but we are pretty close to having a full GNSS solution. And when I say full, that means they do included all the NetR9s that are currently in the system. They do output everything except Beidou. So you're getting a pretty good solution anywhere within the state of Utah. Nevada stations, we've had some upgrades in the last year. The first of last year, we only had 1 Trimble alloy. We now have 6 Trimble alloys. And so things are getting much better. We don't have a full RTX solution out there yet, but we're still working on it. For those that are wanting more satellites in their solution, you can do a single baseline from any of those stations that are Trimble alloys, and you'll be able to utilize those other constellations. We still have a few NetRSs, NetR3s, and NetR5s. They're no longer supported, so we're trying to move those as quickly as we possibly can. So if you're one of the station operators in one of these areas, please get in touch with me. We'll try to figure out how we can get upgraded. Idaho stations, there are 19 stations in Idaho. You can see the lineup. We own we partner with 1 Leica, 4 NetR3s, 4 NetR5s, 6 NetR9s, and 4 alloys. So a lot of improvements there. The alloys and the NetR9s, which are 10 of them, at least half of those stations are full GNSS. We're making big improvements, and thanks to Frontier Precision, Mel Philbrook, and Idaho State, Keith and Raj have done a great job for us. I'm going to go through a quick list of some of the stations that we've recently connected to or installed in Utah. This is the first one in Wellington. We had some problems with that Price station, so we installed a station just down the road in Wellington on a UDOT shed, and it's running fine. And we finally figured out what was wrong with Price, so we got it running well also. So 2 great stations side by side, and if we have an outage, we've got backup. The Great Salt Lake Causeway, I mentioned this one a while back. I think I mentioned it last year that we were going to install. It has been installed. We haven't been able to figure out the cell problem. The cell towers are so far away, so we're using a directional antenna, but the directional antenna doesn't have enough output, so we're not able to connect to it yet. I expect this will happen in the next few weeks. Mexican Hat in San Juan County, we just installed down there. This one was running for a while, and today is offline. I just took a snapshot of this today, but it will be back online, so that's another one. Utah Zion National Park. So this is a great station that just came online, and it's not part of the published solution. It's currently running on the development server, but we partnered with the National Park Service, and they're now helping stream some data to our network. And this Zion station is a good one because it fills in a big hole. So this is one that we're partnering with them on. This is another one that they call Arches. It's actually not in Arches. Arches would be a little bit further north, but it's just south of Moab. So another good backup or redundant station. Another one is in Wyoming at Fort Laramie. Another one is Yellowstone. So we're expanding a little bit with their help. And again, this is just providing some redundancy in some areas. These are 2 that I'm calling Las Vegas area. I don't want to say California because they're in California, but we're not extending into California. They're just some redundant backup stations for the Las Vegas areas, one in Death Valley and one in Mojave. So big help and big changes in those areas. The next thing I wanted to get into, and this has been just a hassle for everyone, is the online bill pay system. It hasn't really worked properly since it was put in place. We have a new one that's put in place, and it's ready for testing, and we're asking people to help us test if they would. So if you don't mind, and you could jot down this URL, gps-billpay.dev.utah.gov. And if you are able to go through the process, this is not connected to our current database, so it's not going to have your accounts. So you can create new accounts and play around with it because we're going to wipe those clean when we actually go live with this. But if you wanted to get all the way to paying with a credit card, you can put in a credit card with the number 4 and then 15 ones after it and an expiration date that is just some date in the future. And you can test and see how this thing works. We'd love to see your take on it. If there are things that are not clear, we'd like to hear back, but let me know if you're interested. But this is what it's going to look like. So one of the key components of this is signing up for this Utah ID. Okay, so when you're at the home screen and you then select Utah ID registration process, it pulls you into this, and it says a Utah ID is not required to use GPS receivers. So to log into your receiver in the field, you don't need a Utah ID. But if you want to manage your accounts and your subscriptions, you do need a Utah ID account, and it is required. Anything that we use, any state system that processes credit cards is required to use Utah ID. So go out and make yourself a Utah ID account, and then it really simplifies things. When you start creating accounts, it'll actually populate your fields in the forms and everything for you. So the next option, and I'm going to go through that in just a second. The next thing is the turngps.utah.gov, which just pushes you back to our turn site. This is where you can log in and you can get a lot of information. You can also download RINEX files and that kind of thing. So when you start a new registration, and this is for somebody that doesn't have an account already with us, you'll go to this Start Registration button. For others, once you're logged into Utah ID, you can go to the View Subscriptions. So once you start going through this process, you go to the Terms and Conditions. These are the same terms and conditions that we currently have on the bill pay system, But take a minute to review those, because there are some things in there that people need to remember or understand, that this is a partnership, and sometimes we have outages. We try our best to make this system as great as it possibly can be, but sometimes we rely on partners and it takes a while to get stations back online, and that's why we built the redundancy that we have into the system. So this is where it's saying that you must sign in to Utah ID in order to complete the registration. Up in the upper right hand corner, that's where you sign in. Once you've created it, it'll then populate the fields here in the form with your Utah ID information, and you can submit that. Once you submit that, you can view your subscriptions that you manage. You can see I have several subscriptions that I manage. It'll automatically, through that process, populate some of that information for you. And one of the problems we've had in the past is we can't have duplicate email addresses. So it offers this possibility of an additional email address. Breaking news. This is the big thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is really for the guys that are in Nevada. We are, as of today, allowing you to connect to this new server that we have out there. One of the problems that we've had with the Reno network has been that it's run on this datum, this NAT83 94 HARN datum, that for some has worked great. For others, they like to move forward and they'd like to be using NAT83 2011 coordinates. Well, now you can do that by using that IP address 165.239.144.7. That server is connected to the active database, so those that have an account can connect up and start using it. If you run into any problems, let me know. I've done some testing just using our Ntrip client. As you see, I've connected up here and it's streaming data to me. I haven't done any field testing, so take a look at it. Let me know if you see any issues. But you should be able to hit NGS control very tightly if it's in. So that's big news. The way that I processed this information was through Opus Projects. There are 13 stations. We constrained 9 NGS core stations, and we performed a network adjustment to the NAT83 2011 coordinates. I tried to choose the best cores that I could find, and I think the results were pretty solid. So that's how we derived the coordinates. These are the mount points that'll show up when you connect up using that IP address. You can see it's pretty basic. I've got 4 MS or single base solutions outputting in NAT83 for CMR+, CMRX, RTCM3.1, and RTCM 3.4, which is something new. And then the same thing in a VRS solution. Starting to get into monitoring a little bit. I mentioned the causeway, and we're very close to getting this thing connected. But one of the things I want to utilize it for is sending our data off to a group that is testing the results of multipath to determine water levels that are next to an antenna like this. And to get into this a little bit more, these are some use cases that have happened throughout the nation. This is the Callow station that's showing comparisons to tide gauges in North Carolina. You can see the results in the lower right-hand corner. The comparison is the tide gauge data is shown in blue, and then in orange is the NGS GNSS station. So you can see that where the station is right next to the water there, it's collecting data out to the end of those yellow lines. And really it is, and this is the way it's explained to me because I don't really understand it all that well, is a simple process of calculating the triangle of multipath. So you've got a reflected signal that's hitting the water and then being read by the antenna, and that difference calculated by a triangle, and the difference in the leg of the triangle is the difference in the elevation. So super cool technology. I want to start doing that out on the causeway, but these are some examples of the way this is being used currently. This is another tide gauge in Alaska. You can see the results are very clean, and they almost mimic exactly what the tide gauges are doing. Another example of one in Florida. and another example of one in Hawaii. So it's a new technology, but I think it has some promise. I jammed through this pretty quick because I knew we were running low on time. But the last thing that I wanted to mention is there was an announcement, and many of you probably follow the NGS and have received announcements. But this Opus S 5.0 is still in beta. But what it's allowing you to do is get an Opus correction with all constellations: GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, Beidou, and QZSS. So one way that you can utilize this is if you download data from us directly, we're now outputting, or we always have been outputting, RhinoX in formats up to RhinoX 3.04. So if you have any further questions about that, let me know. But I'm going to look into this further. I started trying to process some data on it, and for some reason, when I submitted the data through it, it said I didn't have a full 2-hour file. I had actually submitted a 3-hour file, so I'm not sure what the hangup was. Still wanting to work through that, but I will be presenting at the Utah Council of Land Surveyors conference in a few weeks, and I'm hoping I'll have more of an explanation of how to utilize this tool. With that, I'll take any questions or talk about anything anybody wants to.
I don't see any questions in the chat. Does anyone in the room have anything?
There's got to be some questions out there. TC, go ahead. Did you hear that, Sean?
I couldn't hear the question at all.
The question was how prepared are we to move over to NRS 22, just the new reference frame, and maybe your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I believe that we made a huge advancement by moving the Reno network over to NAT 83-2011. By us doing that, and the Turn network already on 2011, it's a published coordinate frame. Once the NGS moves forward with that, they will send the information needed to create those things in libraries for Trimble, Pivot, and other software. So it'll be really a simple transition. But the key is that we have to have that coordinate frame in place before we get there. And so now that Reno's in place, I feel confident that it'll be a smooth transition. I keep hearing 2025, but somebody told me the other day 2026. So I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but I think we're prepared for it.
Yeah. I was just going to say that's going to be a very interesting transition. The changing of datums on a correction source. I assume that we will, give lots of warning, give other mount points as alternatives that are on the older native data or the older datums, right? I would assume, Sean.
Yeah, so I don't like to advertise this, but the question's out there, so I will advertise it. If you're using the current Turn system, you're coming in through 165.239.144.5, and you're using port 2101 to come in. There is another port available. It's 2102, and the output from 2102 is ITRF 2014, which is the same as WGS 84. So if you're working on a scientific project and you do need WGS 84 or ITRF, it's out there and it's available now. I just don't advertise that because I don't want people making the mistake of using that port and starting one of their projects and then surveying in WGS 84 because they're going to be missing their control and their project's going to shift by probably 2.5 feet. So just be super careful. If you do want to use it for some experimental reasons, then it's out there and it's available, and it's just port 2102.
Wow. Actually, I'm sure that in our next presentation, which is going to be on RTX, which is relative to ITRF 2014, maybe we'll be able to parlay that a little bit in what you just really described. But I actually didn't realize that, so that's a great point. Sean, I was going to ask you the CMRX versus RTCM. We've been basically guiding our customers towards the CMRX mount point for a while and haven't really had any complaints about satellite availability, but there is some satellite availability questions throughout the network if you use that mount point.
Just just for the Beidou 3 satellites, for some reason, CMRX, and if there is a Trimble person in-house that could correct me if I'm wrong, it was that it was not able to, CMRX was not able to process and utilize Beidou 3. And that wasn't very long ago that I was told that. So I've been pointing people to the direction of RTCM 3.2 for that reason. Even though people are probably not seeing an issue, and the reason why is because there are so many satellites out there now. They still have GPS and GLONASS and Galileo, but I think they would pick up a few more satellites if they were able to move to RTCM 3.2.
I'm getting some head nods from some of the Trimble personnel in the room, Sean.
Okay.
So, do you guys want to make any points about that, Justin, or? Okay. For any users out there that are wondering about how you can use RTCM in your survey style, it's a very easy switch over just in your rover options. You can make a copy of your existing VRS style and then just change that one setting. So same IP address, same port, but now you'll have an RTCM option and you can select that off of the mount point list versus the CMRX, and you can give that a try. And just see if it makes any difference in terms of number of satellites that you're going to see. So we have a lot of real high-powered rovers out there. And so it's, you know, if you got an R12I or really an R10 or later, it's really nice to have as many satellites as you could possibly have as part of your correction source. So
We did have 2 other questions come in the chat through about Northern Nevada. The first one is, when was the last time the Northern Nevada stations had their positions adjusted?
They've never had them adjusted. When we took over responsibility on that network, we were provided coordinates in that older coordinate frame. We've keyed those in and we've utilized them since day one. One of the issues is that I've seen there are variations. When I look at my integrity monitoring, I can see there are some stations that are out a little ways. So they've moved over time. And that's why I would highly recommend moving to that new system. Utilize that NAT 83 2011 system that I just mentioned, and it'll eliminate all those issues.
what would be the difference between the 2 different datums if they were to change midstream on a job, would you say, Sean, in the Washoe County area?
It can be, the variation has been over a decimeter. So, you know, probably 15, even 20 centimeters in some places. So
Okay.
it's a big difference.
All right, so that's real critical for anybody that is in those areas. If you want to use the 2011 datum, I would recommend you start that on a fresh project and not mix and match on the same job, you know.
Yeah, correct. Just make sure that you're not you need to bounce back and forth to the different servers. You know, if you're on the project, don't forget, because it could burn you.
And bouncing back and forth between the 2 servers shouldn't be that big of a deal. We're talking about 2 GNSS contacts in your survey style. That's easy to do. Once again, you can make a copy of existing styles, just create a new GNSS contact that references the old IP address of the old port. And it's really easy to jump back and forth from one server versus the other. Now, this is only in Washoe County though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Looks
I
like
don't want to
Northern
mix and
Nevada
match
too.
those, but yeah.
I was just going to mention, I don't know if you guys caught that reference station that he put on the causeway in the Great Salt Lake. That's got to be the most remote reference station, maybe in the continental US.
Yeah, it is. And when I went out there with the guys, I actually got a flat tire on my truck coming back, and luckily my spare worked, but it was brutal. Yeah, it
That
is
would have
out
been a
there.
long walk.
Yeah, yeah.
The second question about Northern Nevada was just what is the coverage like?
Well, let's
You
see.
saw the map.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm not presenting, or am I?
Yeah, you still
Yeah,
are.
you still-
Well, you have your
Yeah.
PowerPoint up there. You can
Okay.
you can go to something else.
Okay. So here's the coverage map. You can see, and this is probably small on your end, but you can see right in the Reno area, you've got great coverage. And even north of Reno, you can get a result, but it's probably
Get to
not that great.
Sparks.
Yeah, it's off to Sparks, you probably get pretty good information. Going out to Elko, too far. That baseline's too far, but we did connect it. But anywhere just in that Reno area, as far south as, and I can't even remember those stations, just below Carson City, you should have great results. We do have one station that's offline right now, but that's that NetRS, which is a terrible station anyway. So we need to replace that hardware before it comes back online.
But on the northeastern side of Nevada is where they're particularly interested.
And again, you have Elko, and that's it until you get to Wendover. So
Well,
there's not a lot.
if you're going to be in Northeast Nevada, you're going to be much better served using the Utah, not using the Washoe network. I mean, if it's Northeast Nevada, use the Utah network.
Use the Utah network. You do have this Elko, you do have the Wendover, you have some up in Idaho that are north of you, and you've got this one down in Garrison. So you can actually get pretty good baselines. The issue is going to be in your vertical. You're going to get good repeatable results in the horizontal, but the vertical is going to be kind of trashy. So just be aware of that.
Yeah. We have quite a few users in southern Idaho. Now they're not like going too far south, but there's a lot of people along the highway corridor, the Snake River Valley area in southern Idaho. Quite a few users. You can see that southern Idaho is pretty covered with reference stations there. I was also happy to see the one in Yellowstone. That will expand the reach further north in Idaho, and then also in Wyoming. That one in Fort Laramie, and then you mentioned one other one that I thought was pretty cool. The one that was it looked like it was between Hurricane and was it Beaver? It was at the Zions.
That's the
Was that the
Zion
Zions
one.
reference station? Yeah.
Yeah, that'll fill in a big spot, big hole there. And even the ones in California for the Vegas guys, I think they're going to be super helpful as well. So glad we were able to partner with those guys. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that maybe you deserve a little bit more credit for, just how you have to make connections to these different entities to provide buildings and internet access and security and everything else that goes along with it. There's a lot that goes into it.
Well, and that was kind of the point of the video, right? Sometimes, we just don't realize what happens on the back end. We just assume things happen. I think our team, we're trying to put together a great system. I think so far we've done a pretty good job. There have been a few hiccups along the way, but we try to deal with those as quickly as we possibly can. And honestly, today I feel really, really good about where we're at. I think we've made a lot of progress. To have, probably 80% of all the stations in Utah as a Trimble alloy full GNSS is it's a pretty big feat. So we're making headway. There's still a lot to do. So I appreciate everybody that gives us recommendations and stays in touch with us with questions. That's super helpful. So keep it up.
And that gal that you mentioned, is she officially online now, Sean?
She is Denise Peterson. Yes, she is
Denise.
taking over for Mike Hagan. So please contact her. On our home page, I believe her name is now listed in place of Mike. And so please get in touch with her.
Well, Mike was always our first line of defense, and so I'm sure things changed for you a little bit since his retirement, but looks like it only lasted for you a couple months, maybe.
I try to pick up pieces where I can, but I've got other things I'm working on as well. So if you can get a hold of Denise, that certainly helps me, but I'll also pick up my phone. So if there are questions, don't hesitate.
That's awesome, Sean. Thank you. Are you going to be presenting at any of the conferences in Nevada or Utah?
Just the UCLS conference. So in a couple of weeks, if you want to be in St. George, I'll be down there. I'm going to try to come up with some additional material. I think I'm going to try to talk more about what's going on with the NGS. So I'm going to look at some of their webinars and make sure that I'm on track with what their latest announcements are.
Well, that will go in line with your datum question that you had. So, all right. Any other questions from the group or online? All right, Sean, that was perfect timing. Appreciate you. It was good as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to
Take care,
clap.
guys.
Thanks for all you do.
Yeah, 3